Good morning, Urban Refuge. Welcome to our new normal. Once again, we are in this time of trying to be connected while being separated. Hopefully that video that you just watched was helpful in bringing a broader context in what we're doing in this series called The Hope. And we're going to be looking at Luke chapter 2, verses 40 through 52. And I'm going to do something a little bit different today. I'm going to be going on what I do almost every day on my prayer walk, and I'm going to be walking through this text while on my prayer walk, and I'm going to be talking about different stages that I go through when I'm on my prayer walk. Usually it starts off in a bit of mental chaos, and then I get to certain sections on my prayer walk that I begin to kind of shift my mind, and I get a perspective that starts to change the longer that I walk. And so I'm going to then take times where I'm going to talk about what we're looking at in Luke 2, but I'm also going to take a little bit of time and just discuss or share what just goes on inside of my mind as I go forward. And so we'll see how that goes. All right, so here we go. Before we get too far, let's read the text. Luke 2, 40 through 52. I'll read it and you can follow along. It says, "And the child grew and became strong in spirit, filled with wisdom, and the grace of God was upon him. His parents went to Jerusalem every year at the feast of Passover. And when he was 12 years old, they went to Jerusalem according to the custom of the feast. When they had finished the days, and as they returned, the boy Jesus lingered behind in Jerusalem. And Joseph and his mother did not know it, but supposing him to be in the company, they went a day's journey and sought him among their relatives and the acquaintances. So when they did not find him, they returned to Jerusalem seeking him. Now so it was that after 3 days they found him in the temple, sitting in the midst of the teachers, both listening to them and asking them questions. And all who heard him were astonished at his understanding and answers. So when they saw him, they were amazed. And his mother said to him, 'Son, why have you done this to us? Look, your father and I have sought you anxiously.' And he said to them, 'Why did you seek me? Did you not know that I must be about my father's business?' But they did not understand the statement which he spoke to them. Then he went down with them and came to Nazareth and was subject to them. But his mother kept all these things in her heart. And Jesus increased in wisdom, in stature, and in favor with God and men." So we're going to begin this walk, and we're going to use Psalm 13 because Psalm 13 has an interesting cadence. It actually reflects really well how I feel when I begin my walk, in the middle of my walk, and at the end of my walk. And I gotta say that often in the beginning, my walks inside of my mind are pretty dark. I'm asking hard questions to God, and I'm just struggling. Sometimes I can't even speak. It can be that difficult, and I gotta be honest, I've been feeling that way lately. I'm asking, Lord, why is this going on? So join with me on this journey of faith as we allow God to cultivate the soil of our hearts. Let's go. Well, there certainly is a battle of the mind, and it's a problem. And the problem really has to do with just not understanding. And often when I go through life, I just don't understand how God is working. I don't understand how this all goes together. And so I go on these walks, and what you just witnessed there in that video is really maybe one of the best representations of my mind and how I sometimes think when I go and begin praying. And I think it's a healthy thing. I think it's a good thing. I think people need to do more of that. Let's get into the text that we're looking at today. Kind of a weird scene if you think about it. You have Joseph and Mary who just leave, and they don't take their child with them when they go back to Nazareth. I mean, if that happened today, there would be, child protective custody knocking on the doors of the parents. But there was a different culture back then, and really it was based on community. I mean, you really, really believed that the community would take care of your child. They just made the assumption that Jesus was just a part of the community. A little bit strange, a little bit odd, but that's just the way that it was. And so we have Jesus. Jesus is staying back at the temple, and there's a number of things that we're going to look at as we go on, but it's just pretty fascinating that he stayed back. And the key thing is that he stayed back because he was about his Father's business. Let's continue on. The first part of that Psalm 13 is dealing with the problem. Now we're going to move into the petition. And so on this next section of the walk, we're petitioning. We're asking God to hear us, to consider us, to think about us. So let's keep walking, and then we'll do another section of Luke too. This stretch, I have cried some tears for whatever reason on my walk as God is developing me, as he's churning my soul, and he's just working me over or allowing me to struggle, which he'll allow you to struggle. It's here where I start to break. I don't know why, but it's here. And I don't know where your spot is. Where do you start to break? It's made me think a little bit about Joseph and Mary. I was just walking and just considering how they were on a path, and all of a sudden they realize, oh man, we lost Jesus. We lost the Son of God. Maybe you're in that place right now too, where you were with Jesus, you were holding on to Jesus, but somewhere he's lost amongst all of this chaos. Maybe you can have some empathy with what Joseph and Mary were going through as they realized that Jesus was not a part of the group. Let's continue. There's a band named Loud Harp, and there's a song that's called Hold Me Together. And around this section, I'll have it where I'm praying and I'm seeking the Lord and I'm listening to that song. I've listened to it hundreds of times. And I'm asking the Lord, just hold me together. Can you imagine Mary's prayers as she's looking for Jesus? Lord, hold me together. I don't know where my son is. I've got all this fear. I've got all this worry. Hold me together. There is the scene where Jesus is sitting down and he's amongst a bunch of teachers of the Torah. And he is asking them questions and they're asking him questions. And I really have to say that I respect those teachers. Why? Because they gave a youth a chance. They were listening to him. Man, that's a teacher you want. Someone that's always learning, somebody that understands that God could speak through a 12-year-old, through a 13-year-old, through a 15-year-old, through a 16-year-old. Those are some humble teachers. And can you imagine what the conversation was like? Can you imagine what they talked about? Man, I just think it's so cool that they talked with Jesus for 3 days. I wonder all the people at first that just ignored him. God's speaking. It's our job to pay attention and to listen. I really like how verses 3 and 4 use the word consider. You consider my request. It's not a demand, it's consider. I mean, he's God, he's the king, and it's amazing that we can present our requests. The book of Philippians talks about that. It talks about presenting your request to God, and it also promises that there'll be a peace that will transcend all understanding when you do that. And I think part of the reason why that is because you put it in the king's hands, you put it in the Father's hands, and Dad knows what's best. And then you can just trust in that. Man, I've been petitioning a ton. And I have to say that I've experienced that peace, not all the time, but sometimes, enough to get me through the day. So, present your request to God and allow the peace of God that transcends all understanding guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. Let's keep walking. So Joseph and Mary are looking for Jesus, and they finally find him. They find him in the temple. And of course, they're like, what's going on? And they ask him, they're like, what are you doing, essentially? That's what they say. And he's like, why are you seeking me? Why didn't you just realize that I'm about my Father's business? And you can just imagine Mary maybe just stopping in her tracks for just a moment and saying, hey, I really have forgotten what my son is really about. I have my agenda. He has a different agenda. And in that moment, I wonder if she just really got the perspective that she has to realign her life to the agenda of the Father. Jesus is about the agenda of the Father. And he's very, very willing to align his life to that agenda, so much so that he aligns it to where he goes, all right, if you're calling me to go to the cross, I'll go to the cross. And that's what he does. We as we deal with this situation, we still have the agenda of Jesus. The text tells us that if we are his followers, we need to walk like him. We need to be like him. And he always kept his eyes focused on the agenda of his dad. So friends, we still have the agenda of spreading the good news of Jesus, the kingdom, the gospel message of a different reality that people can walk into and experience by placing their faith in Jesus. That's a profound thing. But these are hard times. These are times where we can get paralyzed and we don't want to do anything. All we really want to do is just sit on the couch and watch Netflix. But these are times where if you say, okay, no, I want to redeem the time. I want to use this time for kingdom good. I got to get creative and I got to think about how to do this. You know, this video, whether you like it or not, it's really the first Final Cut Pro video I've ever done. But I'm just totally committed to continuing to advance the kingdom by being a witness in any way that I can. So I'm like, well, I'm going to learn how to use Final Cut Pro. I'm going to try to do something different. Is it perfect? No, I'm sure it's not, but it's what I'm able to do. And I'll learn and I'll grow and I'll keep asking, I'll keep seeking, and I'll say, Lord, I'm your servant. I want to continue to serve. I don't want to be just stuck not doing anything. I want to continue to be your witness in this world. And so this is what it looks like right now. That's what it looks like. And so as we finish out this walk, as we finish out what it means to go from these transitions of the problem, the petition, the praise, continue praising even though the circumstances are not what we want. You know, today I was out here earlier and I was filming and I was so excited to film or to shoot in digital. It's not film anymore. But I was so excited to do it tonight because I was hoping to be able to catch light through these trees. And I was hoping to get this really cool shot. I like photography and all of that. And then as I was walking out here, it starts to rain. And I thought, man, rain? But maybe that's really appropriate. Maybe to end with rain along with praise is the most appropriate thing. Because, you know, it's not always sunny, but he always deserves praise. Keep seeking, friends. Don't give up. There's hope. God truly is cultivating the soil of our hearts so that kingdom seeds can grow. And we're going to believe in time that they're going to produce a harvest. Don't give up. Keep encouraged. Keep seeking. Keep praying. And keep maybe walking.